Well, good afternoon, San Diego Comic-Con. How are we doing today? Thank you all for being here. We are going to jump right into our self-publishing and crowdfunding panel. Before I introduce our wonderful panelists, I just want to get a quick check from you. How many of you think you may have a question about crowdfunding or self-publishing? I want to make sure we have plenty of time at the end. Just give me a quick show of hands. Do you think you have questions? Okay, 2 or 3, great. Well, first up, we have Karla Medrano. Karla is a wife, mom, nurse, podcast host, comic book marketer, and the founder of Black Girl Comics, a publishing company elevating the experiences of brown and black girls, and the founder of the Zelda Awards, a celebration that recognizes the outstanding achievements of women in comic book culture. We're also happy to have Melissa J. Massey with us. Melissa is your purveyor of fine fantasy comics and tragic shenanigans. The creator of Black Ball and The Alchemist of Aurelia, she combines a love of art history with shonen manga to create exciting adventures and lovable characters. Next up is Arthur N. Ebuen. Art started his creative career as an animator for Futurama and The Simpsons, where he received an Emmy, while also illustrating more Simpsons stories at Bongo Comics. Over the last 2 decades, he's since moved on to tell other brand stories as an associate creative director in advertising and as a writer, producer, and director for video and film production. He's currently the writer and creator of California Inc. and the publisher at Studio 12-7. We have my good friend Ryan Claytor. Ryan is a comics artist and professor. His achievements have included 6 small press and alternative comics expo prizes, as well as nominations for the Ringo and Eisner Awards for his work in comics. He's also the coordinator of the Comic Art and Graphic Novel Minor and associate professor at Michigan State University, where he teaches comic studio courses and spearheaded the development of MSU's interdisciplinary comic art and graphic novel minor. He has also served as a judge for the Will Eisner Spirit of Comics Retailing Award in 2007 and the Will Eisner Comics Industry Awards in 2024.
I know him.
I will be your moderator. My name is Justin Giampaoli. Over the last 20 years, I've transitioned from being an award-winning critic at 13 Minutes and Comics Bulletin to being a writer at DC's Vertigo imprint, Dark Horse Comics, Boom Studios, and Madefire, as well as a freelance editor at Image Comics and Studio 12-7. My most notable work includes DMZ, Rome West, Starship Down, and California Inc. My upcoming work includes the unsettling crime drama West Side, and that's going to be with artist Dave Law at Studio 12-7. So we are here to talk about crowdfunding. So I want to talk first about the crowd part of crowdfunding. As I have talked to various creators, there really seems to be this consensus that creating community is one of the essential building blocks to a successful crowdfunding campaign, especially in the indie space. So I just want to ensure that we kind of acknowledge that premise. So let's talk about the crowd and crowdfunding. How have each of you built that ecosystem of allies and fans? Ryan, why don't we start with you?
Me first, huh? Okay. I want to hear from Art. I feel like you are the master of networking, but I'll start. So I've been self-publishing my work for 20 years at this point, and I have seen no better resource in that time than crowdfunding, Kickstarter specifically. And Justin's right that you need to bring the crowd to crowdfunding, otherwise your project will not fund. And whenever I have anybody ask me, what should I do as an artist? I want to have a career in the arts. The first thing you should do is to start an email list. I was told that way back 20 years ago, and I was really resistant to that suggestion. I thought, that sounds kind of salesy and schmarmy, and I don't want to do that. That feels weird. And the person told me, look, you're going to conventions anyway. Just put a sheet of paper on the table, and if people want to sign up, they can. And if they don't want to, they won't. I said, okay, that sounds passive enough for me. And I am so thankful I received that information 20 years ago, because now, 20 years later, I have an email list of about 1,500 people who are interested in my work enough to help me bring these weird projects of mine to life, to the point where I just published the biggest, baddest book of my career, this oversized hardcover art book featuring...
nominated.
Eisner.
Thank you.
Miss Emmy, Eisner nominated. Oh my God.
It might get an Emmy.
An Oscar, a Tony.
All that to say, that would not have happened without a crowd. And so the best way to harness that is through email, because people tend to keep email addresses, whereas social media platform may be here, it may not be, it's here today, gone tomorrow. You never know what's going to happen. The algorithm filters you out, but if people are willing to invite you into their inboxes, that's a really powerful thing. So that would be the first and best suggestion I have to start building your crowd.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Melissa, what are your thoughts on...
Art said he had a good answer.
No, I didn't. Actually, I'll be honest, I thought we were going to go with Moon first, because I follow you because of this on Threads.
Me?
Yeah, because you have a whole thing online about gaining. And did you not do Epiphany Engine? That's kind of a big
Okay.
deal. What was the number of backers for that?
I'll share.
Can we talk about the number of backers for Epiphany Engine?
Oh, okay. So the question about the crowd and crowdfunding. So Art's talking about a project I led the marketing team for last summer called the Epiphany Engine, and it's the largest Black indie comic book crossover in history. And we raised over $60,000 in 30 days. So it wasn't me. I just led a team. And I think the most important aspects is that don't take your crowd for granted. Don't take your base for granted. It's not enough to say, I'm a woman, I have a comic, so buy it. I'm Black, I have this comic, I'll buy it. It's not enough to say that. You have to hold yourself to a standard, because your community is holding you to a standard. And you want to give them the best experience possible and really sell what you are trying to fund for. So we did a number of things. We was on social media. Social media is absolutely free. So I encourage anyone who is a comic book creator, artist, writer, to utilize social media, whether it be doing lives, whether it be doing static posts about the story, about the characters, but just give your people an experience and smile while you're doing it. Collaborate with your ecosystem. So if you have people in your circle that have an audience, you collaborate with them. So more eyes are on your work. So we did a number of things to reach that milestone.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Melissa or Art, what are your thoughts on building an ecosystem of fans, allies?
Yeah. To build off of what Karla said about your community, I was very fortunate to be in the comics launch community, which is how I met Ryan also. And through that, you start to make the connections, and then you launch something, and suddenly all these people you know from this community are like, check out this thing Melissa's doing. So that really helps get you out there. Also, being part of anthologies can put you in touch with creators too, so further collaboration, or to get shout outs or crossovers and things like that. So it's really about building your front community with your readers and your who will hopefully become your backers, and then also the behind-the-scenes community of your fellow creators and colleagues and peers that will help support you and put the word out for you as well.
From my point of view, it's probably closer to anybody here who hasn't done it before, starting from nothing, right? I've just finished my fourth one, and I'm 2 years in, but to get to that first one, I had nothing, no following, just started a new Instagram. And number one thing if you're going to do Kickstarter is back a lot of Kickstarters that you like. Don't just back them just to back them, right? Back them because you like them. But at the same time, as Ryan mentioned, networking. I don't like using that word. It feels dirty. It feels very corporate. I just call it just being cool. I loved walking around the convention, and I would read the book and go meet that creator and say, hey, I backed your book. I loved this about it. And I genuinely would talk about what I loved about the book to get their insight about them as a writer, but then ask them a question about how they came upon getting their crowd. And then telling, hey, by the way, I'm following you. Maybe if you don't mind following me back. Well, only when it didn't feel like I was being weird about it, But then you start building your community, and as Melissa mentioned, they have people following them, so when they back you, everybody who's following gets triggered, hey, so-and-so backed Art's book. And then they start hearing all these other people. And then they also start signal boosting you on their respective socials, as Karla was talking about. It's building that community. I don't like using the dirty word of networking, but it's just be cool, say hi, back people. The more people you back genuinely and actually kind of converse and connect with them in an authentic way, not in a, hey, I'm here to get something out of you. It's like, I didn't mention to some of them that I was doing a book until maybe the third or fourth time I met them, because I just wanted to meet them. I'm a fan. And then, I'm meeting someone like Moon. I've been following her for a while. I met Stephanie online. I didn't realize I've been following her when I first met her in person. It's fun to meet people and be part of something that's fun, as long as you're authentic. And I believe this is something you mentioned, Moon, in part of your 3 steps is consistency and connect. What's that? Did I? No, but she goes by Moon.
Moon, not Luna.
Did I say Luna?
Yeah, I think so.
Luna.
I apologize.
I think you said Moon.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Moon is my pen name.
Sorry.
But yeah, just it all adds up, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun backing each other, and it's fun seeing each other win. It's really cool to watch each other's passion projects come to life, and just connect and be consistent and be yourself. Be cool.
So we've kind of talked about the crowd part of crowdfunding. I want to kind of switch gears and talk about the funding part. So Karla, you mentioned you've been a part of so many successful campaigns, and they've typically funded over their goal, which I think is fantastic. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you identify the funding goal, and what are just the top tips you can share for general marketing?
So if you are brand new, this is your first book, first crowdfunder, first campaign, I always will suggest to be safe. Go with a really safe number. So how you calculate that is you look at what you're offering. So if you're offering, let's say 3 tiers, a $10 tier, a $30 tier, and a $100 tier, think about how many people realistically will probably be interested in your book. So let's just say most new, no audience, no following, they can probably get at least 50 backers if they really hustle. So if you say the average bid is $30, I forgot what I just said, but $30 times 50, then that should be your funding goal. So if you start there, and then after each crowdfunding campaign, you can kind of see what worked, what didn't work. In the second crowdfunding campaign, you're going to offer more. So, you will aim for a little bit higher. But I would advise against setting the goal so high that you have to hustle and you run the risk of not funding it and you get discouraged. And then that doesn't look good, and people say, oh, that must not be good, so I'm not going to back it if she launches it again. So I always would suggest start safely, start safe. Think about your average bid, 50 to 100 backers, and you go from there.
Okay. Melissa, I have a question for you that revolves around kind of multiple issues. So your work, like Black Ball and The Alchemist of Aurelia, these are multiple issue series. So how do you sustain that interest over time with a series of multiple issues that needs multiple campaigns?
Right. It kind of actually ends up working in your favor if you have a series that you're serializing, because you have the first book, and then when you do the second book, people come back from the first one, but then you get new people in every time, of course. And it's nice to kind of keep the momentum going as you'll get more returning backers that are invested in the story. So that almost makes it a little easier to fund. But keeping the momentum going, I mean, give them something to come back for, whether it's, you know, the promise of what's going to happen in the next issue. Sometimes I've done what I call like a trailer comic in the back of the book, which is a little like, this is what will happen next time sort of thing. And that will, you know, keep their ears peaked about when's that next book going to come out. And then also Kickstarter's messaging system is really helpful. So when I'm getting ready to launch the next issue, I can use that to contact everyone who backed the previous one to be like, hey, like it's coming, get ready, get them excited to come back and be ready to go. And of course, you know, you hope they would also get on your email list so they'll know exactly where you are in the process as well. But, you know, not everyone always signs up. So it's really just trying to meet your backers where they're at, remind them that you're still there and, you know, this book is coming about this time, or, you know, be on the lookout for it.
Okay.
Can I piggyback over that?
Yeah,
real quick?
absolutely.
One thing that I love about that people don't do enough of is when you do have a serialized thing and you have a second, third, fourth, fifth book, like let's just say there's gonna be new people coming in, offer catch-up versions. Nothing like a new person like me coming on and it's issue 5. I'm not gonna start with issue 5. Give me 1 through 4 as well. That's extra money for you too, right? So do a catch-up option. I've done some where I didn't back it because it's like only issue 5. I'm like, why would I start there? Like there's free money for you, especially in the PDF version, you know, and someone wants to become a new fan and then we'll come back for the rest. Offer the catch, it's such an easy tier to add and it does nothing but help your campaign.
And then just to add on to that, when I do make my pages in the serialization, make them for the new backers, because when the returning backer comes, they're going to be like, yep, number 2, that's what I want. But so make your page tailored to your new backers, and your returning backers they know what the game is.
Yeah, those are great tips. Art, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about building out a campaign page, particularly with your kind of marketing and advertising background. Like when you're building out a new page, what are you looking for in terms of the info and the content you load on that campaign page?
Here's a really good tip. I used to work in advertising and marketing, but then specifically before that was newspapers. And I remembered one time this story was too long for the page, and I'm laying it out, and I called the editor-in-chief, like, this story is too long, or we got to go and press in 10 minutes. He showed up, and he looked at the bottom of the story, and just started, and went, and I was like, he's like, if it's important, it should be on top. That's it. He's like, if it's important, it should have been on top. That's it. So what's most important to you? Do you want to talk about the story? Is that the biggest selling point? Is it the offerings? What's the most important thing that'll sell your book? Is it the team of people that you have for your anthology, the shining names? That should be on top. Is it the story itself, the theme? Put that on top. You know, is it that you have amazing variants? Put that on top. What's going to sell your book to that specific audience? Because what kind of only you know your audience, and that doesn't come until actually the first 2 campaigns, maybe. But yeah, important on the top, bring it down. But you know, it's sales. You look at a billboard, the biggest thing you see is the most important thing, and then it kind of funnels down that way. So keep it simple, stupid, right? KSS. But also keep it most important on top, down, and figure out what's important to your audience.
What about sharing samples of the work? I know there's a fine balance between you don't want to give away too much content, but you want to tease it.
Yeah, it's important to put samples of the pages because they want to know what they're buying, right? You know, you're gonna anything you buy as a consumer. What do? We look through all the product pages. We look through testimonial. We look for different angles of the product. Same with a comic book. If you're just going to show pencils, but I don't see it colored, I don't see what the lettering looks like, then I don't know if I have full faith in what that piece looks like. You know, give me a couple pages, and if it's an action-based thing, show a nice action piece maybe. If it's a romance book, show me a nice little heartfelt moment in there to show me that you know how to tell a story.
Thematically connected to the work.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ryan, I've watched you over the last, 20 years put in so much grassroots marketing to your work. You've done things like organize cross-country physical signing tours and online promotional tours for some of your work. Can you talk to us about why you've taken that approach and what are the tips for organizing that kind of endeavor?
I'm very cheap. I feel like whenever I have a project out, to make it successful, you need to tell people about it. So typically, I'm not alone in this. I'll go out and solicit interviews from podcasts, or I'll do an in-store signing to let people know that this thing is happening. And you do that multiple times over throughout the campaign to let people know about this. But I think the thing that I do that's a little different, that I wish more people would do, is instead of just scattershotting these and on Tuesday, hey, I'm going to be here, and then Friday rolls around, hey, I'm going to be here, organize that beforehand and then put it all into a singular graphic. It gives you this wall of appearances and events happening that you can say, hey, this is a tour. It's the same thing you were doing before. You're doing these multiple things, but you're just sort of organizing it all in one place so that when people see that, they sort of step back a bit and say, oh, wow, what's this? That's a lot. Let's pay attention to what's going on. And then very deliberately on that same graphic, I include a hierarchically large URL at the bottom of that graphic to say, go here. Like all this stuff, all these events, all these podcast interviews are not as important as getting the person to that URL so that they can back your work. So that's kind of the organizational system that I do, and it just involves rewinding your timeline a little bit before the campaign starts. So instead of starting a week to a month beforehand, sometimes I'll start 2 to 5 months ahead of time contacting people. Sometimes that's too long for people to plan out. Like if I'm going to talk to a podcast, they don't know their schedule 5 months from now. But if you've done it before and people get to know you, they're like, oh, I enjoyed talking with this person before, then they're more likely to plan 5 months out. So those people that I plan with very far in advance, I've talked to before, and we're on a good rapport. So then I start getting closer to the deadline, and I start contacting new people and seeing if I can slot new folks in there. So that's kind of my approach to that.
Great. Are there any other just kind of like lightning round tips you would share for general marketing?
I would say plan some posts before the campaign starts. During the campaign, it's a very intense time. You're trying to think of everything you can possibly do to let people know about this thing. You're doing interviews, you're doing in-store signings, you're letting everybody know about it, and it gets a little manic at times. There's a lot to think about. So to lighten that load beforehand, make a couple posts. You have things in Kickstarter that are called updates that update to everybody who's backed your campaign. Or write out a couple social posts so that you just have those in your back pocket that you can post on any particular day. So that would be my long-winded lightning suggestion.
Yeah. Karla, what about you? I don't think we got to the second part of that question about just general strong marketing tips and lessons learned from your experience.
So I often tell, and I have a comic book marketing Facebook group. So I always tell the students to create a folder of like your pre-launch, launch, post-launch. So you should have 3, if you're that type of person like I am, you're gonna have 3 folders: a pre-launch folder, a launch folder, and a post-launch folder. And in that Google folder, wherever you may have it, you're gonna create different, or hire someone from Fiverr to create different creators for you. So you wanna have, a motion trailer. You wanna have static posts featuring pinups or the covers. You wanna have 30-second snippets from the interviews that you did. So all of that should be planned out. And I think one thing that sometimes indie creators, we forget, we think we are, Beyonce, and we don't have to market anything, and we can just drop something and millions of people will buy it. But we're not. We're not. People, and then there's so many projects that are on Kickstarter. So what will make yours stand out? If people see that you've planned and really put a lot of thought into this project, people are going to pay attention. And then, as Ryan said, planning the marketing deliverables and things will take less stress off of you. Because you will still be hustling, even with the things that you've planned out. You still will be hustling. You're still going to be on lives. You're still going to, go into people's DMs and says, "Hey, I have a project. Thank you for following me." You're going to be emailing people. So as much as you can schedule out ahead of time, you can schedule out your email drops. You can schedule out your posts on social. So as much as you can schedule out, I would encourage you to do so. And the last thing is, don't rush. You've spent thousands of dollars probably creating this comic book or this project, and then you want to rush to launch it. It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So take your time launching it. Put as much effort and consideration into your launch as you did your book. Mm-hmm. It deserves it, and people need your story. So put effort into the marketing behind the book. And, there's always people, there's like the comics launch group that we're all a part of. I have my own group. So there's resources out there, free resources and paid resources that you can utilize to learn marketing. Because that, unfortunately, we wear 50 hats. We're the creators, we're sometimes the artists, we're like the voice actors, we're the podcast hosts, we're the moms, we're the fathers, so we have a lot of different hats. So plan it out, don't rush the launch.
So a lot of your thoughts around planning, I think, are a good segue to my next question. So as your bio says, you juggle a lot between family, day job, Black Girl Comics, all of your creative endeavors. What advice would you give to people for just staying organized when you're self-publishing?
Oh, wow. So you definitely have to, I have to exercise patience and grace with myself. I also have to recognize where I am in life. I'm in my 40s. I'm going through perimenopause. So some days I don't feel like it. Some days I don't care. Some days, I want to hug and kiss everyone. Other days, I don't want nothing to do with you. So you're dealing with a lot of emotion. You're dealing with a lot of physical toll on your body. And then your family, your job, your 9 to 5. So how I approach it is this. My family and God always comes first. So once they're taken care of, once I feel like I've gotten, did what I need to do for my family, then everything else comes after that. Asking for help. So with the Zelda Awards, I founded, which celebrates the women in comics, I said, hey, I need volunteers to be on the committee. And Melissa is one of the volunteers. And I gave her some business cards yesterday, and she's been passing them out. So asking for help, right? And then finding your tribe, finding your team. And then 2, be grace, show some compassion for yourself. There's going to be days you don't feel like doing it. But if you've planned and you've put some things in place, your business will operate even on those days you want to take off. So, but I guess that, I don't even remember what I just said, but hopefully you took one thing from what I just said.
Yeah, no, I think that was great. I think allowing yourself grace is a big one. It's hard to be creative on demand, right? You need a break occasionally to recharge, so that's great. Melissa, you have a really, I think, diverse set of offerings with your campaigns. I mean, you offer physical options, digital options, catch-up options, original art. How do you determine what you want some of those reward tiers to be? Let's expand on that a little bit.
Sure. I think it's always great to offer a digital and a physical reward. There's people out there, like myself, who have an irrational fear of becoming a hoarder. So for single issues, we like to get the digitals, and then if you put out a trade later, that's when I'll jump in on a physical. Or, people might just want to take a chance on you. They're not sure they're going to like your book, so a digital reward is a great entry point, especially if it's a single issue, $5, and then you're getting them in the door. And then, with the physical issue, that's really, for me, what the campaign is all about, is making the book a real thing. So that tends to be the centerpiece of my campaigns, but by offering both kinds, I'm covering all the different kinds of audiences and people people abroad too who may not be able to pay the shipping, but they want to read your book. If you want to expand out into that worldwide audience, that's also a great way to get more people in the door as well. And then for everything else, it's, how do you make a higher tier? How do you give a premium offering to get in those higher backers that'll really help you get over the line? So that's when it's like, could I offer original art? People love to get original art pieces. I like to get original art pieces out of my house, so everyone's happy. And what other kinds of fun things can you add to make your campaign a special event? Almost like a Comic-Con exclusive, right? You can only get this at this campaign, this print, this piece, whatever it may be that you want to offer.
That's great, thank you. Ryan, you've been self-publishing for, I think, 20 plus years at this point, which is quite an achievement in itself. What tips can you share that you think have helped just sustain Elephant Eater Comics and that longevity over such a long period of time?
That's a good question. Do projects that you love to do. Don't do projects that you think are going to advance your career. Don't do projects that you think are trendy. Do what you're sincerely passionate about, and that'll keep things going. That'll keep things moving. I've done such weird little projects that no traditional publisher would even consider doing them. I published my late grandfather's poem about empathy that I turned into a comic book, and it did very well on Kickstarter. But if I proposed that to a traditional publisher and told them that I wanted it in this unpublishably tiny size and it had to be printed on uncoated paper stock and all this different, so they'd never touch it with a 10-foot pole. But it's a passion project, and I think if you show that passion, people are going to come along on that ride. That's contagious. They want to see what's going on there and be a part of it.
Yeah.
So I'd say be passionate about what you are creating. Don't chase flash-in-the-pan stuff. Genuinely look inside and see what is important to you and do that work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think passion will always translate to the page, right? Art, conversely, you're about 2 or 3 years into your self-publishing journey. So what comes to mind for you as far as advice for aspiring creators who might just be starting out on their self-publishing, crowdfunding adventures?
Don't do it. No, I'll echo what Ryan said. I mean, we're here to put stuff on the shelf that we want to see. And if you're just doing stuff to... Here's one thing somebody asked me when I was in advertising. I was talking to some students, and I did untraditional advertising. It's social change advertising, so really heavy stuff like suicide prevention and mental health awareness, that kind of stuff. And it's advertising. I'm not trying to sell, fast food, which I was doing for a while. But the question that was asked to me by one of the students was, is there a lot of money in that? And I said to the student, I was like, if you're chasing money, you're not going to have a good time with your career. Be really great. Be really good, be really great at what you're doing. Money will come because you're going to become an expert. You're going to be very niche. You're going to be chased. They're going to be chasing you. And so that applies with what we're doing here. If you're authentic and you're happy with what you're trying to do, it'll be easier. It'll just be so much easier. It doesn't feel like work. Even though you're up late, like me and Moon, we're waiting for the family to go to sleep because I'm like you, I can't type if I hear a sound. Mm-hmm. I cannot type a
What's
letter.
That?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what's that? Huh? Squirrel. So, and it doesn't feel like work when you're up at 2 in the morning, typing or writing or drawing, because it will feel like work if you're making something to try to chase a trend to try to make money. I'm trying to get something out of my system as a creative. So have fun, exactly what Ryan was saying. Make it something, and it shows in the work. It shows in the work. If you're doing it for a paycheck, it shows in the work. Yeah.
Can I toot Art's horns for just a second?
Absolutely.
I mean, he sort of touched on this earlier, but I have never seen somebody run so full force into an industry before. Like Justin said, he's 3 years into his comics career, and he's borderline on a trade paperback already put out 4 issues, worked with a lot of artists on different variant covers, and outside of the project, he's gotten to know so many people so quickly in a very genuine way. Like you were saying, it's not just coming up to a table and saying, hey, I'm this person, and how are you doing this, and what can you do for me? But like seeing what their work is about, understanding it better by having conversations with them and getting integrated into that community. And you've done that at seemingly lightning speed.
Yeah.
So Justin, when you asked Art about like, what can you do at the start of your career? I feel like watching from the outside, I've seen you do that in such a quick and genuine way by connecting with people who are already in that industry. And I just want to give you some props for that.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It really just comes with being a fan of the industry and wanting to get to be part of it. It's just genuine curiosity, as creatives are mostly students most of the time. We just want to learn, and we just want to share and empower other friends too. So just wanting to meet people and then share. That's what we're doing this. I went to a crowdfunding panel that got me to go, I'm going to do crowdfunding for my book. We were originally supposed to pitch California Inc. as a thing to publishers. And then I kept hearing it might take 5 years to get greenlit. And then I found out about crowdfunding at a panel, and here I am doing it.
No, these are good points, and I totally co-sign on giving Art those props. I mean, I think he's done more community building in the last 5 years than I've done in the last 25. We're kind of at the same point. And I think that's a good example of emulating things you like. If you see somebody's work you like, ask them those honest questions about how they do it, build genuine relationships. I think that authenticity always comes across to people. And if you see someone who runs a successful campaign, it's okay to pick their brain and get those tips. Are there any other burning pieces of advice you guys would like to cover before we open it up to questions?
Can I?
Melissa?
Sorry, go ahead, Melissa. I would like to echo something that Moon said about, and actually Ryan brought up too, scheduling. For me, I'm visual, and I come from marketing and advertising, so I have to see it visually. I like to take screenshots of calendars that then I put into a virtual whiteboard. And then I think that some nerds in here would like this. Then I start to color code the types of communication that I'm doing in those weeks to make sure that I'm doing a video, am I doing a podcast clip that I'm pushing out, am I doing an email blast push out? And you're not trying to do everything every day, because then you're hitting all those audiences too fast, too hard, too often. So I might be saying the same thing all week, but to different parts of my audience in different ways. So seeing those visually on a calendar shows, okay, I'm hitting them on a Monday, I'm hitting them on a Tuesday, maybe a Thursday, and maybe a Saturday. That's a lot. You know, and planning those, as Moon said, is really important. And as Ryan said, building those assets ahead of time. And then if you have things like, I don't want to use the T word, Twitter. They have scheduling posts available. So if you preload them 3 days in advance, it's nice to just hit schedule and just walk away, and you could take an off day when you're not feeling right and just...
I think those little tasks also give you a nice sense of accomplishment, so you feel like you're making progress even when you're not actively writing, right? You're still supporting the writing effort.
Virtual whiteboards, I can't sing enough praises about. I'm working with my friend Ben Crane on an anthology, and we have the shared whiteboard. It's Miro.com. I don't work for them, right? Miro's awesome. It's free. It's a great way to share a virtual space with a group of people, and you could throw everything on there, from a photo that links to something, it's a literal whiteboard but digital. And then if you have a Mac, it's called Freeform, and you could share it there too. So that way you could put everything on a wall, like a nice murder wall.
Melissa, did you want to add something before we open it to questions?
Yes, I don't think we've talked about failure in a Kickstarter,
Okay.
and I have experience in that. Don't be afraid if your campaign doesn't fund. It's not really a failure, I said failure, but it's actually just free market research at that point. I failed my first campaign, but it was actually so useful for me because, one, I knew exactly who was interested in my book. I understood, like, oh, this does have legs. I just went wrong, like here, here, and here. If I pivot, if I do this, change the cover, and then it was successful, and then, I was able to get started. I then failed a campaign more recently, which was a bit of a surprise, And the key was really to turn around that failure quickly and to spin it and be like, okay, like maybe the goal was too high. Let's bring the goal down. Let's tweak things again. I also lined it up with hockey playoffs, and the Toronto Maple Leafs were still in, so I was like, this is my game 6, let's go. So I was able to make these fun videos with all these sports puns that, as I knew less and less about the sports, they got more ridiculous. But so it was a great marketing tactic, but just doing something fun like that to turn around your maybe not funded campaign, and then people can still be excited and like, oh no, like she's still in it, I'm still in it. It just kind of gets people to come back on board, and then I was successful. I just ran a quick relaunch. It was 2 weeks and got it out the door, and that time was a success. So don't be afraid of not funding, especially in this climate. I think we're all a little worried about, are we gonna fund? I'm trying to launch a trade, and it's like, in this economy?
Is that what you sound like?
Oh yeah, all the time. When I'm in my house, you know. But yeah, so if you don't fund, it's not the end of the world. It's a learning opportunity, it's market research, and now those people that even backed that campaign that didn't fund, you still have access to them through the messaging service or Kickstarter updates, so you can still communicate with them and keep them on board with you. They're not gonna go away just because the book didn't come out the first time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I say that often in my day job, that learning what doesn't work can be just as useful as learning what does work, right? All right, I'd like to open it up for questions now. So who would like to start us off with a question? Yeah.
I'd love to ask all of you what advice you might have for a creative team, let's say a comic that disagrees perhaps on production schedule and on like the Kickstarter planning or the project. Like what advice would you have for a team that might not see eye to eye, but they need to get on the same page to make their project a success?
I just ran into that.
Yeah, so I think the question was, what do you do when the creative team doesn't agree on timeline, production schedule, those types of things, if you didn't hear the question?
I don't know
Art,
if
do
I
you
have a
wanna
solution for it,
take
other
a stab
than
at that?
I have an example of that, but it's not a good solution. I bowed out.
He quit.
I mean, because it has to work. Everybody has to be in lockstep, and it will show in the work. And it wasn't clicking. We weren't clicking. There were 3 of us telling one person it's not clicking, and I had to bow out. And then me and somebody else created our own thing. But you have to click. Don't force it. Don't force it because it's going to show in the work, and it might not be successful. But and if it kind of is, it's going to hurt the whole time. So also, here's what's fun about this. We have no bosses. Pick the people you want to work with. Pick who you want to work with. You have plenty of time to pick who you're setting your own timeline. So pick the people you want to work with. You all agree on stuff before you even start. This next project that my friend and I started on our own, we started off with an immediate timeline we decided on. And then we reached out to other folks and said, here's our timeline. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's the contract. Do you want to be a part of this? Set expectations immediately of what's going to happen and what you expect out of everybody. If you set expectations, they're in or out. There's no guessing. There's no, well, you didn't tell me. I did. Here's the contract. Here's the timeline. Here's what we're trying to do. You down? You down to fund? Is that what that stands for?
Down to fund?
Yeah.
Down to fund.
I think that's what that stands for.
We made a new slogan.
Yeah, let's not use that online. I don't want to use the acronym.
I feel a little underqualified to answer this because I'm usually on my own making these campaigns, but I am married. And I married a strong-ass woman. And when we're together and working together, we're both strong personalities, and we equate working together as like let's say we're cooking together. One of us has to be the lead chef, and the other has to be the sous chef. And before we start cooking together, we say, okay, who's the sous chef today? Like, all right, I'm the sous chef. I'm doing the chopping, I'm doing the grunt work, and you're doing all the important stuff. Or the roles may change. And I think maybe that can help is establishing who is lead, who's sous chef, who's going to do these, directorial roles, and who's going to say, okay, yes, I will go post that campaign. I will get this number of pages done by this particular day. I will do these tasks. So I think you have to sort of establish those roles at the onset too. So hopefully that helps a little bit too.
And also I want to add, sometimes it might be a good reason why people aren't on the same page. So having an open discussion, like what's going on. Sometimes it might be a personal issue. Sometimes it could be, money, whatever the situation may be. Sometimes it's just a conversation, and you can work it out. So to build off of that, sometimes it doesn't work. You have to kind of bow out. Agreements are important. Work with people you have that you think come to know are reliable. Establish, the expectations early on. But even when you do all of that, things can still come up and happen. So like even, working with the committee on the Zelda Awards, I remember I said something and like half the group was like, no, we don't want to do that. And I said, okay, because I value their input. So just because you're the boss doesn't mean that your team doesn't have valuable input. And sometimes it's a matter of you backing down and listening to them, because sometimes they're absolutely correct and you could be wrong. So it's all of those things, and you just have to find your team, and that might take a little time and effort. So I always suggest, so there's a difference between sharing yourself and sharing your brand. Those are two different things. So even though, you know my bio, you don't know me. You just know that what I've chosen to share. So I always say to students, think about what you want to share, that part of yourself you want to share. And you create content centered on that. So I, like to create informative, inspirational, creative content. That is my brand. So that's my tribe. People who want to be inspired, people who want to feel empowered, people who want to be informed. That is my audience. And then within my audience, there's different subsets, right? Comic book lovers, people who, want to learn about nursing, whatever the case may be. So figure out who you are, figure out your brand voice. And I always say, choose your 3 words. It could be funny, creative, empowering. Choose your 3 words, and you create content around your 3 words, and that's how, that is your people. That's your people. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to create content. My people are people who like superheroes. No. If you approach it from your brand voice, you will find your people, and that's your community. And some of those people will buy your comic book. Some of those people might buy your mixtapes. Some of those people might just be there for the experience. Some of those people might come to see you in Comic-Cons. So just figure out what part of yourself you want to share. That is your brand voice, and that's how you attract your people and your community. Because no matter what you post, they're going to get it, and they're going to support you.
I think we still have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Who's next? Right here. Yes.
So I've done self-publishing for picture books. Much like every time there's a specific vision for it, textile line and done. But related to that, was also trouble getting it onto shelves, like not like a bookstore where I have relationships, connections, but more like a big box mobile or having it on like distribution. How does that work for self-published comics?
So distribution is an interesting beast. So there's many ways to distribute your comics when you self-publish them. Kickstarter is one way to distribute your comics. You can also distribute them from your table at a convention. You can also distribute them on your website. Those are all ways to distribute comics. You can also get traditional distribution, up until this year, Diamond Comics was a way that you could distribute your comics. I'm not going to get into the Diamond saga, but it's no longer a possibility, essentially. And there are...
Ingram Spark is a good, I haven't quite used it, I'm going to start using it, but there's other publishers, other websites like Ingram Spark. You can upload the PDF of your book, and then they will, it can be print for hire, or they will actually distribute it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
Ryan.
no, that's fine. Thank you for adding to that, too. So there are other comics distributors. Lunar Distribution is one of them that has some potential for indie folks to get into. I was very lucky in that my last book hit right before the Diamond debacle started, and I was lucky enough to get paid, so, which is not the case for everybody. So I haven't had a chance to jump into Lunar and apply to that portion of their indie distribution arm yet, but that is an opportunity for folks to get distributed as well. But beyond the larger comics distribution arms, there's also small press distribution. You can look into distros, which are often regional. There used to be a fellow in New York called Tony Shenton who would distribute sort of East Coast, like New York area, into Chicago, and he would physically take this binder around to stores of mini comics and say, hey, what do you want to buy? And then he would give you that order, you'd ship them to the store, you'd give him a percentage of that cost, just like a traditional distributor. So you might start searching around for smaller distros as well. So those are a few ways to distribute your book.
Okay, thank you guys. With our final minute, can you let us know where to find you and your work?
I am Moon, the storyteller, and you can find me at Black Girl Comics on Instagram.
MelissaJMassey.com is the best way to find all of my work, but I'm also on Blue Sky and Substack, and I have a trade collection coming out this fall, so stay tuned for that.
Art Ebuen, and you can find my info up there. Find me at table EE11, not for the rest of the day, I'm done, but tomorrow I'll be there. And let's stay in the theme. We do have a Kickstarter coming out called Systemic, so if you go on Kickstarter and please look up Systemic Anthology, what helps, especially with Kickstarters, as we talked about, hit that pre-launch button, that helps me a lot. You get to see what I do, so please press that button. Systemic Anthology, one more time.
Was that systemic? I didn't hear you. Can you say that?
Systemic.
What is it called?
Systemic.
Yes.
My
Systemic.
name is Ryan Claytor, and you can find me at elephanteater.com. That's elephant eater, like a person who eats elephants.com. All my socials and everything is there.
Thank you all so much.